Welcome to the CES Letter, a closer look. This video presentation is working from the March 31st, 2015 edition of the CES Letter, and we'll discuss pages 43 and 44, which examine the Kinderhook plates. The CES Letter includes a full-color Mormon infographic that tells a story. It appears that the infographic seeks to discredit Joseph Smith. In 1843, at a town called Kinderhook, Illinois, a set of 6 double-sided brass-looking plates were dug out of the ground and eventually brought to Joseph Smith for his assessment. He examined them, and a hand-drawn copy was made and printed as a broadside in Nauvoo. Years later, the History of the Church provided a description which is reproduced on the graphic. I insert facsimiles of the 6 brass plates found near Kinderhook. I have translated a portion of them and find they contain the history of the person with whom they were found. He was a descendant of Ham through the loins of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and that he received his kingdom from the ruler of heaven and earth. A few decades ago, the plates were analyzed and found to be fakes. With that knowledge, the author of the infographic confidently declares, Joseph couldn't discern the fraud. The LDS Church now concedes it's a hoax. What does that tell us about Joseph Smith's gift of translation? The author of the CES Letter goes even further, writing, Joseph Smith made a claim that he could translate ancient documents. This is a testable claim. He failed the test with the Kinderhook plates. On page 63, he complains that Joseph was duped with the Kinderhook plates, thinking that the 19th century fake plates were a legitimate record of the descendant of Ham. And later, on page 81, he protests, I'm now supposed to believe that Joseph has the credibility of translating ancient records when the Book of Abraham and the Kinderhook plates destroy this claim. The CES Letter is not the only critical publication that expresses concerns about the Kinderhook plates, but as we shall see, this criticism seems to be losing steam. The fact that Joseph Smith assumed the Kinderhook plates were a genuine ancient record supports that he believed buried metal plates truly existed, as one would expect if he had found such a record himself. In contrast, if Joseph had fabricated the gold plates from which the Book of Mormon was translated, or if they really didn't exist, then his immediate suspicions regarding the Kinderhook plates is that they too could not have been real, but instead were forgeries. The translation provided on the graphic contains errors. It is, in fact, a paraphrase from the journal of William Clayton. When compiling the History of the Church, the editors changed a description into a first-person statement. In other words, there is no record that Joseph ever said, I have translated a portion of the Kinderhook plates. Since the Kinderhook plates were forgeries and the symbols on them devoid of meaning, any claim by Joseph Smith to translate them by revelation, as he had done with the Book of Mormon, would be problematic. Understandably, the primary issue for the author of the CES Letter appears to be translation. The problem for the CES Letter is that it assumes that translating by revelation was the only way Joseph Smith could have approached an ancient record. But this is a false assumption. Joseph Smith was interested in languages and hired Joshua Sachs to teach Hebrew in Kirtland, Ohio between January 26 and March 29, 1836. When working with the Egyptian papyri, Joseph and his colleagues filled a notebook with symbols and apparent definitions to assist with understanding. The book was called The Grammar and Alphabet of the Egyptian Language, or Egyptian Alphabet. Is there any evidence that Joseph used this notebook and its contents when working with the Kinderhook plates? The answer is yes. On May 7, 1843, a group of men approached Joseph Smith in Nauvoo and were shown the Kinderhook plates. One of the men wrote a letter to the New York Herald that was published on May 30th, which was recently discovered by researcher Don Bradley. The man identified himself as a Gentile and describes how The Kinderhook plates are evidently of brass and are covered on both sides with hieroglyphics. They were brought up and shown to Joseph Smith. He compared them in my presence with his Egyptian alphabet. Here is indisputable contemporaneous evidence that Joseph used his Egyptian alphabet notebook when translating the Kinderhook plates. But an important question is whether there are any entries in the notebook that contain the information related by William Clayton as being found upon the Kinderhook plates. If we scan the pages of the notebook, we discover that all of the primary topics are mentioned on one page. In fact, the fourth page of handwriting includes all of the topics mentioned by Clayton, the first line of which refers to a descendant of Ham, which is located in an entry in the middle of the page. The bottom 3 lines of notebook page mention line of Pharaoh, one who reigns upon his throne in heaven and earth. These parallel the last 3 topics in Clayton's journal entry. Loins of Pharaoh received his kingdom in heaven and earth. The symbol next to the entry is a small boat-shaped figure. It is impossible to know if it is indeed meant to represent a boat, but the question is whether there is any symbol on the plates that resembles it. In fact, there is a prominent symbol that looks like a boat, but it has additional lines. When those lines are removed, there is a resemblance. So, what does Joseph Smith's experience with the Kinderhook plates tell us about his gift of translation when compared to the Book of Mormon? Well, there appears to be several important differences. There is no manuscript of translation of the Kinderhook plates, only the paraphrased comment from William Clayton. In Clayton's journal entry, only 27 words comprise the entire translation. Of course, the Kinderhook plates translation was never published because there was nothing to print. Joseph Smith reported using a seer stone to translate the Book of Mormon, but the Egyptian alphabet notebook was the instrument used in creating the comments recorded by Clayton. A scribe was present for the Book of Mormon translating process, but nothing similar for the Kinderhook plates. The translation methodology was also different. Joseph reported that the Book of Mormon was translated by the gift and power of God, but the Kinderhook plates translation came from comparing symbols.
The text that Joseph translated from this portion, what Clayton calls a portion of the Kinderhook plates, can be derived from a single character. So that portion that he's describing is probably just a single character. Single character definition near the beginning of the grammar and alphabet of the Egyptian language. Substantially the same character appears on the Kinderhook plates as one of their most prominent characters. And an eyewitness account written on the day of the event has Joseph Smith comparing the characters in the 2 sources, finding a match, and enables him to decipher at least one of the characters. So a larger conclusion that we can draw is that we've got both a smoking gun, the Gale that he uses to translate, and we've got an eyewitness. We know exactly how Joseph Smith attempted to translate from the Kinderhook plates and obtain the content that Clayton says he did. And a larger conclusion then that we can draw is that Joseph Smith translated from the Kinderhook plates not by revelation, but by non-revelatory means. And so, while we have James D. Bales saying only a bogus prophet translates bogus plates, we've got Joseph Smith saying prophet is only a prophet when he's acting as such. And when a prophet is just comparing characters in 2 documents, he's not acting as such. Thank you.